Hello Greenfest, thank you for having us and welcome to our online video workshop. In this short video we're going to be discussing the issue of food waste, the scale of the problem, why it's an issue, as well as a few easy steps we can all take to reduce our food waste and eat more sustainably.
We'll also be introducing you to our community project, Biocycle, a voluntary student-led food waste recycling program based in Southampton. We hope you'll appreciate the idea, and perhaps a similar project could be useful in your community as well.
To introduce ourselves very quickly, we're both students at the University of Southampton. My name's Jack and I'm studying a Masters in Marine Biology. Some of my interests include running, phytoplankton and science communication.
And I'm Hazel. I just graduated and I'm about to start an engineering PhD. My favourite things are space, rabbits and recycling. We've been volunteering with Biocycle throughout last year and are the current coordinators. The main topics we'll cover are food waste and why it's a huge problem, how Biocycle is taking on this issue in Southampton, some tips and advice for reducing food waste in your own home, and finally, sharing a few extra resources in this field.
So, why should we wage war on food waste anyway? Well, the scale of the food waste problem is huge, yet is often hugely overlooked as a major producer of greenhouse gas emissions. There are countless statistics we could use to illustrate this. Perhaps the most shocking is that if food waste were a country, it would be the third largest in terms of emissions, behind only the US and China.
Equally, emissions associated with food supplies account for somewhere between 20 to 30% of global emissions, depending on the study. This seems at least partly understandable, given food is an essential resource for us, but 1/4 of these emissions, or approximately 6% of all global emissions, come from food that will never even hit our plates.
Furthermore, whilst this is clearly an environmental concern, we also have to consider the social side to this problem. We have 4.7 million people in the UK living in severely food insecure homes, where they don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet 250,000 tonnes of food is going to waste each year. So there's clearly a problem with the system as well as what we waste as consumers.
So what can we do? Obviously, reducing consumption, lobbying supermarkets to sell more ugly food, and saving food ourselves in our own homes by paying more attention to food edibility than best before dates are all options. However, our project focuses on leftover food scraps and how to use these sustainably.
Let's get into how Biocycle works.
The process is simple. Local houses, mainly students, pay £10 for a caddy bin. Each week, our volunteers collect the caddies from outside the houses. We then transfer the food waste to bike trailers and cycle around the city in small teams. The waste is then taken to nearby farms and allotments who've joined the scheme. And finally, the waste breaks down into nutrient-rich compost, ready to feed some more plants.
Here's a short video showing how we run our collection service. So we got this morning, we left at about 8:30. We went around Southampton collecting food waste from our houses, and we've now cycled all that food waste here to Aldermoor Community Farm. It was set up about 3 or 4 years ago. There's a student who got in contact with Southampton Hubs, and they just set this up to combat the lack of sustainable food waste disposal options in Southampton.
So every route has typically about 10 to 20 houses, and every house on average wastes between 2 and 3 kilograms of food waste. Currently, in this academic year, we have wasted and collected over 1.5 tons of food waste. We're looking to break records, and in every academic year, we're looking at about 2.5 tons of food waste. People are very grateful about us providing a food waste service for them.
I really enjoy the conviction of knowing you're doing something good and seeing how many people working together can make a really big difference. there's a really nice group of like-minded people here, so it's a really good way to make friends as well if you want to volunteer.
We're very lucky.
Diverting food waste from the landfill in this way helps to reduce the rate at which these sites fill up, and our volunteers get the opportunity to ride in friendly teams regardless of ability level. Through Biocycle, we are able to better inform people about the environmental impacts of food waste, which many have never considered before. And composting is the most environmentally friendly way to upgrade soil without using expensive and polluting fertilisers, which also have a very high carbon footprint to produce. And this leads into the last huge advantage of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, directly through reducing methane emissions in landfills, as well as indirectly through decreased fertiliser usage, as we just mentioned, and carbon sequestration in soil.
Here are some of the stats from the project in just over 6 months. We've got a graph showing the amount of food waste we collected each week, split into routes by colour. You can see that the amount from each route is fairly steady, but as more houses joined, the total weekly weight increased. In total, 143 households and 1 local business joined this year. We composted around 2,800 kilograms of food waste, and this equates to about 1,300 kilograms of CO2 equivalent emissions saved. This comes from having a combination of less methane produced through composting the landfilling, carbon sequestration in soil, and avoiding emissions that would normally be produced from fertilisers.
And, out of interest, we wondered how far the carbon equivalent emissions we'd saved this year equate to driving in a car, and that comes to roughly 6,259 miles in a new petrol car, so that's 50 miles per gallon and 2.31 kilos of CO2 for every litre of petrol. So this is enough to go on a road trip from Hampstead Norreys, where Greenfest is held, and visit Paris, Madrid, Rome, Athens, Istanbul, Warsaw, Berlin, and get back to Hampstead Norreys with 1 mile to spare. So this goes to show, firstly, the difference a small number of people can make, just around 15 volunteers and nearly 150 odd houses willing to recycle, and secondly, the importance of sustainably disposing of food waste. For something that's so easy to do with a compost bin, you can make a disproportionately huge difference to the environment. And lastly, the community benefit that maybe we can't sum up with numbers and data, turning waste into a resource, building community spirit, and an appreciation of the environment and a recreational space is really, really powerful.
Here are our top 5 tips for reducing food waste at home.
So of course, composting, we had to mention this, but whether it's a community project or just in your back garden, composting is a great way to turn so-called waste into a resource. Lots of universities or councils will already have food waste recycling available, but even composting what you can in your own garden goes a long way towards helping. And a few ideal compost ingredients include fruit and veg, cardboard, grass and hedge trimmings, most plant-based foods, used tea and coffee, and even pet bedding.
There are now a huge number of apps that can be used to share surplus food and prevent supermarket food waste. Apps such as Olio and Too Good To Go allow food sharing to get free food or restaurant food at discounted prices. Most major cities also have some form of zero waste community project, which redistributes surplus supermarket food. It's not only sustainable, but also good for our wallets.
Planning ahead. This one sounds so simple, but it's one of the best and easiest ways to save yourself buying food you don't need, wasteful and draining our bank accounts. Recent studies estimate that average consumer wastes over 500 calories a day and often far higher in developed countries. And another study has estimated the average UK family with kids wastes around £700 each year on food that's not even eaten. So working out how many tomatoes you need, or whether we're actually going to need that ginormous tub of cream before we go shopping, is actually a pretty easy way to stop ourselves chucking away food unused and also wasting our money. So obviously we might be preaching to the converted if you're watching this video, but there's clearly bits we can all be doing.
Throwing away perfectly good fruit and veg in supermarkets just because they're wonky or strangely shaped has been estimated to account for up to 40% of all fruit and veg waste. However, some supermarkets have recently started selling wonky veg boxes for hugely discounted prices. By buying these boxes, you can help reduce supermarket food wastage whilst finding super cheap deals.
And lastly, it goes without saying freezing things is better than chucking them, but there are so many foods I had no idea you could freeze. For instance, you can freeze salads, yogurt, chilies, pasta, bread, garlic, berries, bananas, and even cheese, though apparently cheese freezes best when grated.
To wrap up, here are a couple more resources to help you fight food waste. Our friends at Future Brew are tackling food waste from a different angle. Their project saves out-of-date food from supermarkets and repurposes it in two ways. The first is using stale bread to brew beer, which is then sold at the university bar. Also, other goods, such as vegetables, cakes, and mixed groceries, are packaged up into mystery bags. For each bag purchased, they donate a second bag to local people in need.
And on a similar note, if you find yourself with spare long life food or simply wish to help out, you can donate to food banks anywhere in the UK, and the Trussell Trust have a really handy food bank locator on their website.
Thank you very much for attending this workshop. If you'd like to find out more about Biocycle, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us by email or visit our Facebook or LinkedIn pages. Keep saving food and stay safe.